Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Susana Perdo-Swap. I'm the founder and executive director of an all-volunteer nonprofit called Vanguard Culture that works to advance San Diego's creative industry workforce. Vanguard Culture provides award-winning arts coverage, professional development for creatives, and unique cross-industry cultural events that create arts jobs, bring diverse communities together, and inspire creative collaboration across all industries. For more information about our events and programs, please visit vanguardculture.org. It is my pleasure to acknowledge our professional development sponsor, Jack Lample, our community partner, Idea One, and our entire family of donors and supporters for helping to make these programs possible. A big thanks to the City of San Diego's Commission for Arts and Culture and the Parker Foundation for their support. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that the land that we inhabit here in Southern California is the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. We extend our profound respect and gratitude to the Kumeyaay people who have lived in this region for more than 10,000 years and find inspiration in their traditions promoting balance and harmony within the land and the people who live upon it. We call upon arts leaders to publicly acknowledge the ancestral land of Native American communities in their region and to do their part to open a dialogue that helps dismantle systemic and oppressive structures of colonialism that affect Native Americans to this day. On behalf of the entire Vanguard Culture family, we hope that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy, and that despite the tremendous stressors that the past year has presented, we hope that you have found ways to stay inspired and are continuing to create. Arts professionals are doing very important work right now. Let's not forget that. Now, Vanguard Culture has been hosting a series of creative industry roundtables throughout the pandemic to help bring executive level arts leaders from all industries together and to brainstorm ways for us to collaborate and innovate our way to a place of resiliency through 2021 and beyond. At registration, you were sent a link to a living document that we've created from those roundtable sessions. If you are in a leadership position within your organization, we encourage you to view it and contribute to it as needed. As you all know, for this roundtable session, we are honoring the late, great Larry T. Baza, who sadly lost his battle with COVID this year. Those of you who knew him knew that our community lost a titan. So I'm going to try to do this. I've done all my crying, you guys. If I keep it together, be proud of me. Those of you who knew him, knew that our community lost a titan, and we are deeply grateful for the many, many contributions to the arts and the greater San Diego arts community that he did. In the 40+ years Baza spent in community service and the arts, there are few artists or arts organizations in San Diego that he did not touch. Some of you knew him well. Some of you may have heard about his work in the community, and others didn't know him at all. Today, we will hear stories about his life and legacy, but we will approach this with an outward lens, highlighting the values that were very near and dear to his heart: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our speakers will share brief anecdotes about their time with him, but will also share information about how they are carrying his legacy forward within their organizations and communities. We hope these conversations inspire you to take similar steps within your organizations and communities. Throughout the event, we encourage you to activate the chat box, connect with one another, and discuss the topics we are tackling today. Please take a moment now to share your name, any organizations you're affiliated with, and what city you are joining us from. This will help us to get a better sense of our audience. And with that, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our co-host, Victoria Hamilton. Go ahead and unmute yourself, my dear.
Thank you, Susana.
Hi.
Hi.
Let me pin you
Good afternoon.
here.
So great to see so many familiar faces. Thank you so much for being here.
So I'd like to read your bio to give everyone a sense of, you're quite a titan yourself, my dear. Victoria Hamilton serves as the president of California Arts Advocates, Californians for the Arts, and on Vanguard Culture's advisory board. She was the founding director of the City of San Diego's Commission for Arts and Culture, where she led this nationally recognized multi-million-dollar local arts agency for 24 years. At the commission, she achieved unanimous approval for a plan for 2% for public art and capital improvement and 1% in private development, as well as for Penny for the Arts blueprint for increased arts and culture funding. With over 30 years in the field of arts administration, she is recognized for her pioneering leadership and work on public policy, cultural tourism, grant making, arts advocacy, and cultural diversity initiatives. Victoria has served as president of the United States Urban Arts Foundation and California Assembly of Local Arts Agencies. She's been a grant panel member for the National Endowment for the Arts, the California Arts Council, San Diego Foundation, and the Sacramento Arts and Culture Office, and in public policy committees at state and national levels. She also serves on the board of directors at the Belleville Park Conservancy, the NTC Foundation, and is a member of the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition Steering Committee, San Diego Arts and Culture Challenge Fund, and the SDSU Campanile Foundation Arts Committee. She has received numerous local, state, and national awards for her work, including the Ray Hanley Foundation, Innovation Award given by the U.S. Urban Arts Federation for, quote, outstanding individual contributions to arts and culture in American cities, and the Americans for the Arts Selena Roberts Odom Award for outstanding contributions in the local arts agency field. Okay, you're a powerhouse. Thank you so much for being here. And a very warm welcome. You are one of the region's most cherished arts leaders, and you knew Larry Baza very well in your arts advocacy work through the years. So, but for those who didn't know him, please tell us a little bit about Larry. Tell us about his career trajectory and the values that you knew to be very important to him.
Thank you for the opportunity. I actually met Larry before I moved to San Diego. I was at an arts conference in Oakland, and it was at a reception, and there were two really cool people there, and I came up to them to just, wanted to find out who they were, and it was Larry Baza and Lynn Schutte. So I've known Larry since the mid '80s. When I moved to San Diego to take the job here, Larry was a friend all throughout my career, as he wore so many different hats, from the County Arts Advisory Council to the Centro, to so many other places of leadership. And it was my privilege to really promote him and as an amazing leader to become a member of the Arts Commission, which he later became the chairman. Also pushed for years and years to advance his name to become a member of the California Arts Council, which took a while, and finally he did with Senator Pro Tem Atkins appointing him and reappointing him for this year. And unfortunately, he was only able to chair one meeting of the Arts Council. That was in January. But even with a short time at the California Arts Council, he advanced so many important programs that benefit small budget organizations, individual artists, BIPOC artists. One of his achievements was the establishment of administrators of color fellowships, and always a huge advocate for individual artists. Established the first ever individual artist fellowship that was launched this year, and encouraged the council to really pivot during this time of this pandemic when everyone was hurting, and turned around the Arts Council grants so that they would benefit very quickly, getting money in the hands of artists and arts organizations. April is Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month, and we at the Californians for the Arts, California Arts Advocates, are seriously working to go big, go bold, and I say go Baza, because we're going for $1 billion of stimulus funding for arts and culture and creative workers in the for-profit and nonprofit. We're also taking a page out of the city's penny for the arts. We're going for $1 per capita for the arts in California. Wow. Right now we're about 73 cents. That's ridiculous. State of Minnesota is $6 a head. Come on, people. Mm-hmm. This should not be rocket
in California.
Yes.
In California, one of the meccas of arts and culture.
That's right.
In the world. Yeah.
So we're dedicating our advocacy efforts to Larry Baza and his legacy. And I invite you all to come on this journey with us. Tomorrow we have a conference. In fact, Mayor Gloria, Todd Glorias, will be kicking it off. And and it's free. So just go to Californians for the Arts website and invite you to attend.
Yeah, we'll add that in the chat as well, so you all can sign up and register. I'll definitely be there. We have a small video, a very short video that we produced, so that those of you that didn't know Larry can learn a little bit about him, and those that did, you can reminisce and give yourselves a big hug. A big thanks also, and a huge hug to his widower, Tom Knoll, for your help with producing this. Hello, my name is Susana Paredes-Swap, founder and executive director of an all-volunteer nonprofit called Vanguard Culture that works to advance San Diego's creative industry workforce. Larry Baza was a force to be reckoned with. He never lost sight of the things that mattered and never wavered in his fight for diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a young woman, I fought a similar fight. I was president of Mecha. I protested racist legislation like Prop 187. And I experienced my fair share of grown men and women screaming in my face to go back to my own country. At that time, I thought I needed to be loud to be effective. And Larry taught me that really all you need to be is consistent. Like the force of nature that he was, his presence was a constant source of strength and resilience for many. His dedication to equity and consistency of action opened the door for current and future generations to also be heard. On behalf of our entire family of Vanguardistas, it is our honor to share this brief tribute to the one and only Larry Baza. Larry T. Baza was a San Diego native whose Mexican-American and Chamorro Guamanian roots were deeply embedded in the Latino and mixed-race communities of Barrio Logan and Shelltown. Growing up in San Diego during the 1950s and 60s, like all children of color, he was constantly reminded by the world outside of his family and neighborhood that he wasn't white, nor part of the mainstream of San Diego or America. Nevertheless, he was taught by a loving family with a strong work ethic to achieve independence for himself and others like him. As a high school student, Dr. Martin Luther King and the African American fight for civil rights was the catalyst that ignited the fire in him to be part of the struggle for equality for all Americans. Cesar Chavez, someone of his own maternal heritage in his own state, would then further inspire and motivate Larry, as did Dr. King. That both these men advocated for nonviolent protest, as taught by Gandhi, brought a spiritual perspective to his political development. The African American and Chicano civil rights movements would forever influence his work to be an equal participant in civic life and to work for the fulfillment of the rights guaranteed to all citizens by the United States Constitution. From the early days of the United Farm Workers strikes to the Great Boycott, Larry participated as he could as a student, from collecting non-perishable foods for the farm workers' families to collecting donations for the work of Luis Valdez's Teatro Campesino and support for the establishment of Chicano Park in Barrio Logan. In the early 1970s, Larry came out of the closet and began to look at the growing so-called gay liberation movement. He found that this movement was not as welcoming as he had expected it to be, and that it was very clearly controlled by upper middle-class white gay men. He would not be deterred from participation because he was prepared for this civil rights struggle and had learned from his own experience in civil rights as a man of color. These experiences, which boiled down to the color of his skin, did not provide Larry with the privileges that straight-acting white gay men enjoyed all their lives. He believed that while some things have changed in the LGBTQ+ community, there is much to be learned from people of color in these communities. He served on the Bienestar San Diego Advisory Committee, and until his final years served on the Latino Services Advisory Council of the San Diego LGBTQ+ Center. He served as executive director of the Centro Cultural de la Raza in Balboa Park in San Diego for more than 9 years. Larry's 36 years as an openly gay professional arts administrator and advocate was driven by the belief that, quote, the arts are key to the development of healthy and educated individuals. They contribute to building safe communities, and that access to all arts for all people, regardless of race and economic status, is vitally important to a civilized society, unquote. His work in the arts has included directorships of local nonprofit arts organizations and is a grant panelist and consultant for local, state, and national arts agencies such as the National Endowment for the Arts, the California Arts Council, the Arizona Arts Commission, the City of San Diego's Commission for Arts and Culture, and the former San Diego Community Foundation. His board of director service has included California Association of Local Arts Agencies, the National Performance Network, the National Association for Latino Arts and Culture, San Diego Youth and Community Services, the Chicano Foundation, San Diego Performing Arts League, Kids Arts, San Diego Foundation for Change, the Women's History Museum, and Education Center of San Diego. Larry served on the City of San Diego's Commission for Arts and Culture for 8 years. He was a member of the Port of San Diego's Public Art Committee, served as a trustee of the Museum of Us, formerly Museum of Man, and as chair of the California Arts Council. In a continuation of support for San Diego's visual arts community, Larry Baza and his life partner Tom Knoll founded Knoll Baza Fine Art in Little Italy in San Diego. Baza is survived by Tom Knoll, his husband of 37 years, brothers Ronald and Mark Baza, nieces Kimberly Baza Peterson and Carolyn Baza of Lakeside, Yvette Baza of San Diego, nephew Mark Baza of Fallbrook, and numerous grandnieces and grandnephews. May he rest in power.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Romani, and I met Larry Baza in 1999 when I interviewed him for a documentary I was shooting. There were several things that really stood out to me about Larry Baza. One was Larry was incredibly supportive of the various arts organizations in town and also of up-and-coming artists. He could really see the potential in somebody or in an organization and help them rise to what he thought that they were able to do. In addition, Larry was fiercely supportive of diversity, be it in culture or within the LGBTQ community, and he seemed to believe very strongly that art and diversity would create a stronger community that would be more open and be more viable for all of us. Even though Larry has left us and we no longer have his presence here, he's left us a tremendous legacy, one that we can use as a guide so that we too can build this community that Larry envisioned for all of us.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephen Whitburn. I'm the San Diego City Council President Pro Tem. I had the good fortune of knowing Larry Baza for over 20 years, and one thing that I want to make sure everybody knows about Larry is that he was a fighter. If somebody wanted to cut funding for the arts or somebody wanted to attack somebody else's civil rights, Larry would get in that fight. Now, it is true, Larry had a big smile and he had a twinkle in his eye and he had that soft voice. But that just meant that when he got into that fight, he would do it with a big smile and a twinkle in his eye and with a soft voice. Larry would often reach out to that extensive network of his and really get all of his allies to join him in whatever it was that Larry was fighting for. He really was the embodiment of the ability to disagree without being disagreeable. Larry Baza, in so many ways, set a great example for all of us.
Hi, I'm John Heiken. I'm a co-founder of Fern Street Circus. And I'd say one of the things about Larry Baza is that he had an almost endless supply of skills, and they would be revealed the longer you knew him. And for us, really started around the time that my wife Cindy and I started Fern Street Circus. He helped launch us. The first couple of years he did a huge amount and would always check in. That was a great thing. He helped launch people, and then he moved on and helped launch other people. He had great skill as a picker. That was one of the things. The first couple of years we did a rummage sale on Fern Street, and Larry was so amazing. He knew all the prices. He knew everything about everything that was that we were selling. He was just remarkable. So I miss Larry all the time, and so many of us can claim him as our friend and our mentor.
The thing you should know about Larry Baza is that he lived a life that was in itself a work of art.
My name's Micah Parzan. I'm the CEO of the Museum of Us, where Larry served as a trustee. Larry taught me that you can be gentle and fierce at the same time. To me, Larry's legacy is that our job is to strive to be better, always. One of my favorite things that Larry used to say was actually how he said them, always with grace and great respect for himself, but also with great respect for others. One thing that people should know about Larry is that he was a decolonizer through and through. I miss Larry. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Virches. I've known Larry for over 50 years, and I worked with him for over 40 years in various capacities. We served on the Public Arts Advisory Council for the County of San Diego. At that time, I saw Larry as a young, energetic artist whose commitment to everyone else except himself was admirable. He always fought for the underdog, and he always knew that art was not out of the box, but inside the box. Inside the box so much that it was inside the heart. Larry's legacy is tremendous. His arc of influence for everyone has been felt throughout the years. I remember Larry making me laugh a lot because he was such a gentle soul. His smile was contagious. His legacy would be left on everyone he touched. I'd never heard him say no. He was such a positive agent for positive change. As a leader of Centro Cultural de la Raza and the California Arts Council, I had the pleasure of seeing him work with all his heart and soul for the good of others. I want you to remember this, that a man can make the difference, and Larry made a difference to all of us, especially me. Lo quiero tanto.
Sure. In addition to $1 billion of stimulus funding, we're looking for $1 per capita for the California Arts Council. As part of that would be Creative Core pilot program, which would be an opportunity to pipeline young artists or young arts administrators into real jobs. 2 years of full employment, similar to the Works Progress Administration, or some of you might remember the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act, which I'm a graduate of. That and some other bills are on the docket. So again, I invite you to our conference tomorrow. Starts at 9. And there's some really good panels and some really great speakers and artists performing. And it will be really lively. So hope you can join us, and I hope you can join us on this journey, which we're calling From a Campaign to a Movement, Arts Advocacy in California Today.
Let's go, Baza.
Let's go, Baza, is right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'll probably call you in a little bit later. And our next guest, I'm very, very happy and honored to welcome our next speaker. He's the producing artistic director of Teatro Máscara Mágica, Mr. William Virches. Mr. Virches, this is the very, very abridged version of his bio, which was 3 pages long, because he's just an incredible force here in San Diego. Mr. Virches is the former director of visual and performing arts at Sweetwater Union High School District. Prior to that, he served as professor and artistic director at Southwestern College Theater Department. And during his tenure at Southwestern College, Mr. Virches served as professor and chair of the Theater Arts Department. As producing artistic director, he directed, produced, and acted in over 150 productions. He shepherded over 40 World College premieres and developed with his colleagues models of curriculum for community college theater arts departments throughout the state. His students and colleagues have worked all over the world as actors, playwrights, technicians, designers, and directors, many appearing on Broadway stages in New York and international stages. His partnerships with the San Diego Repertory Theater, the Old Globe Theater, the La Jolla Playhouse served as a showcase for his students and his programming. As the district director for the Sweetwater Union High School District's Visual and Performing Arts, Mr. Virches helped establish their internationally renowned mariachi and ballet folklorico programs, and was eventually honored with the naming of their center, the William A. Virches Visual and Performing Arts Department. William Virches has directed, produced, and acted in over 200 productions and has been on stages all over the United States, Mexico, and Canada. He has received over 150 civic, state, and national awards and proclamations, including the U.S. Congressional Award for Citizen of the Month, and was highly honored by George W. Bush's Presidential Award for Outstanding Volunteer Service, and has been inducted into no less than 5 Halls of Fame. Mr. Virches is a member of the Stage Directors and Choreographers Guild, Screen Actors Guild, San Diego Performing Arts League, San Diego Shakespeare Society, San Diego Opera Advisory Committee, Classics for Kids, the Friends of Balboa Park, the Screen Actors Guild Nominating Committee for the Academy Awards, and a member of the state coalition SB 805 to save small theaters. In addition, he has served as a board member or advisor to dozens of notable arts institutions. Welcome, Mr. Virches.
Buenos dias, everybody.
Okay.
God, you're so good looking group.
I'm trying to find you. Oh, there you are, my friend.
I'm
okay.
very it's this technology is I'm really scared of it, but you all look beautiful. Thank you for being here. You know, as I look at many familiar faces and I stand on the shoulders of every one of you, and Larry and I, we talk, you know, I feel like part of his family because Ron is his brother is in our board. But let me say to you about I was thinking about what Larry was, you know, and I told him in real life, you know, he always said, tell people when they're alive what you think of them, not when they're gone. So I want to let you know that I told him this when he was alive. So he's hearing all of us. He was like an octopus in the sea with all these legs and all these tentacles. They went out with different colors of the rainbow, you know, and he would grab you and bring you to his heart, and that whole purple blood of his would just ooze over you, you know. His smile, it was incredible. Larry was an actor, you know that, right? He did one of his first plays at Southwestern College called The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit. And I thought he was going to be a great actor, you know. He had it in him, his sensitivity and his intelligence, but he went on the other side, you know. He became this incredible force. I was just, I learned so much. I got a PhD from him for arts culture with Victoria Hamilton. They taught me how to be a little more calmer than I am, you know, how to negotiate.
This is the calm version of Bill
Yes.
Virches, by the way.
Yes. He, you know, he was one of those people that agreed to disagree, as somebody said, but more than importantly, he met you on the middle ground, you know. And that's where life is. It's in the middle of the rope, you know, on a tightrope. It's not on one side or the other. The danger is sitting in the middle of this rope that you can actually fall off without a net. And he always took the middle ground, you know, and the middle ground meant that he grabbed you from both sides and brought you in. And I got to tell you, all of you, and I told him one time, you know, he was like the water that would come. He would, you know, it's like Bruce Lee, you know, he was the water that would go over this. And he was such a gentle soul. And, you know, even in his last days, he was fighting for our theater, you know, Susanna, for our theater at National City. And he was mentoring us because I got to tell you, there's a fight right now. In fact, today at 3:30 in the Senate of California, there's a fight for SB 805. And we talked
Tell us about that. Tell us what is it? What is SB 805 for those that don't know?
This is the Theater Relief Act Fund. It's in reaction to the AB 5, where they want all small theaters and small art organizations to be employees and to work under the rules of the workforce. Yeah, workman's compensation, insurance, sick leave, and your budget will increase them tremendously. This is not about you know, AB 5, because AB 5 is a done deal. This is in relief of getting some money from the federal government to support theaters to actually have employed actors. And today, Dolores Huerta, Josefina Lopez, and Luis Valdez will be talking in the Senate to support small theaters. I'm telling you, this is the demise of small theaters if this doesn't pass the labor board. We will not be the ground that the growth of theater will be. So I hope that one of you will look at this today at 3:30 for the testimonial. It is imperative. It is the lifeline of our theaters. And Larry was helping us fight this fight, holding our hands and guiding us. In fact, the California Arts Council is going to be one of the agents that's going to help us do that. But I want to thank you all. We're all in this fight together. We got to hold hands together, and Larry is with us all the time. He is a person that will never, ever be missed, ever. He will never be missed. I love him so much. Thank you.
Oh, sweetie, I wish I could give you a hug right now. I want to give you the opportunity. I know we're gonna all get emotional, but I do want to give you the opportunity to talk about your theater company, because you have always been somebody, you're one of my best friends and mentors. I've known you 20 something years. I don't remember how long, 25 years. But we've done a lot of shows together, and you're somebody that always influenced me to be proud of my heritage. And living in this binational community, sometimes it gets really tricky here to I was born in Tijuana, raised between Tijuana and Mexico City. But when I came here, it was the first time that I ever sort of became aware of my Latinidad. It was the first time that I was sort of told that I was other. And coming to terms with that as a young person is always a little bit complicated. And you were somebody that always, put forward your identity, tu identidad como Latino, and we're very, very proud of that. And so I want to know a little bit more about how you apply DEI work, or equity in casting in your productions. Like, how do you consider casting, and how is that related to the DEI work that Larry was so proud of?
Well, we founded Teatro Máscara Mágica, Dr. Jorge Huerta, myself, and Floyd Gaffney from UCSD. It was called the Common Ground Theater because we had all these components of diversity that came to the table. We were inclusive of all these races, and one of the things that happened with us was that we thought that what we could do is create this coalition of diversity within our programming, especially what we presented on the stages. I really do want to give a shout out to the Old Globe and the San Diego Repertory Theater in La Jolla, because they have actually gave us an opportunity to show our works there. But, that's not their agenda. We have to do our own voice. We have to paint our own mural, if you will. So we have to do our programming to these voices and audiences that don't have a place to view our work, constantly. So what we have done is try to incorporate our voices and our culture and our playwrights. We've been given the opportunity to do original work, Josefina Lopez and Luis and all these people, right? And even Kent Brisby of the Asian Story Theater is part of our coalition. Yeah. So, and Larry, by the way, was one of ours. He incorporated all this. Being a Mexican from Mexico and coming to the United States, there was no Cinco de Mayo, there was no Mecha, there was nothing like that. Our voice was in our house, the enchiladas, the mole. I had to change my name. My name is Guillermo Alejandro Virchis de Olvera, to Memo, to William, right? Yeah. To William. Yeah. And the identity was lost for me for years until I met Luis and Daniel Valdez. I became a Chicano with them through the activists of teatro. And so that gave me an impetus, when we wrote a play of the first play of Chicano Park. I realized what our journey was. You never heard mariachis ever here, until Martha and Sal Contreras brought them here. So those voices were never heard. Now we're being heard. And I'm glad that we are now coming to terms that we are all inclusive, that all our voices count, that all our voices count. And we need platforms for audiences, for children, for the elders, for everybody to come together and tell their stories. We are a storytelling civilization, and everybody's got the right to tell their story more than one time a year.
Right. more than one time a year, not to just check the little box, right?
Right.
I mean,
And I
that's
want
why
to
I think the work that you do is so important, because you continue putting, you know, Latino plays out there and written by Chicano artists. And can you tell us what you have coming up? Anything that we should be paying attention to in your productions or initiatives?
Well, yes, working backwards, we're going to be doing our pastorela again. It'll be our 35th year of doing this tradition, right? And then what we're going to do is the last Angry Brown Hat with some incredible, wonderful actors that you will know in the Latino community. And we're doing a comedy by Josefina Lopez. And we're working with a Asian Story Theater to do a play called Not Working. It's a takeoff on working, but not working on the
Not working.
story Asian theater.
A musical
So
too, or
it's a musical, yeah. And if
great.
hey, we're looking for contributors, by the way. Anybody can contribute to this. Of not working, you know. It's going to be a musical, and you know, we're narration. So please, all of you here on this forum, please contribute, and that's what we're going to be doing. And more than everything, we're going to keep our outreach program alive. You know, doing our workshops for young kids and things like that. And I just want to thank you all. I love you all, and I want you to all stay safe and well, right?
Yes.
Thank you,
Well,
Susana.
thank you all. Thank you so much, Mr. Richards, for being a part of this. It's absolute honor to interview you, and I hope that I get to interview you for a whole entire session one day, because you have so many wonderful stories under your belt. So thank you again for honoring us with your time. And now we are going to welcome two of our friends here. We're welcoming Endy Bernal and Patricia Chavez. Endy Trece is an intermedia community artist, arts leader, and strategist. Her performance and visual work are rooted in her indigenous cultural traditions and branches out through her intercultural ceremonials, exchanges, study, and travel. Buto is a strong influence in her work, as she has studied with Semimaru of Sankaijuku, as well as Yoshito Ono, among other Buto masters in Japan. As an arts and culture leader and strategist, she is one of the co-founders of Tonali Studio in East Los Angeles, and has been a part of the board of directors at Pacto Latino and Centro Cultural de la Raza in San Diego. She is currently the president of the board of directors at Self-Help Graphics and Art in the Tongva territory, also known as Los Angeles. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's quite a, I'm just like catching my breath, you know, from listening to Memo here, because, you know, just it's been such a year, right, for everyone. And as I was listening to him, I'm like, wait, I was going to say that. Wait, that was my experience. And I think a lot of us are going to have that experience as we talk today.
For sure. There's going to be a lot of overlap, for sure.
Yeah, lots of overlap. And you know, when I first was invited to this forum today, immediately I thought of the kind of my go-to vision that I have with Larry in it, Larry Baza, which is, you know, as a teen, I would go to, in LA, in East LA, I would go to Self-Help Graphics a lot. So when I went to college in San Diego, I naturally gravitated to the Centro Cultural de la Raza. And I was then exploring, and I started my journey with Danza Azteca with Maestra Marilu Valencia. And I completely remember, like, moment by moment, when we were all practicing in circle with the danza drum going and everything. And all of a sudden everything like stopped, and Larry enters the room, kind of like Bruce Lee, as you know, William said, like he has such a presence, you know, and he completely was able, because he was present, he was able to honor others' presence.
I'm so glad you said that.
As a young person, you know, kind of, you know, starting my journey in the university, which is a whole other, you know, setting. I was like, oh, he sees me. Like that was like my immediate thought, like he sees me and all of me, and I could see him, and and his conversation with our maestra, and then he greeted us all, and he clearly he had things to do because he had like a whole thing of like a folder like this big, right? He walked in with like his responsibilities, but he took the time to honor himself and honor us by greeting us, and that made such an impact. And as the years progressed and I became more involved with danza and the centro, and really began to like unfold myself in my own identity as a creative person, I would see him more, and I would really get to understand and really get to like just to witness how he was able to continue being his whole self in all kinds of different settings, and how his whole self included compassion, and his whole self included resiliency, because it's not always easy for LGBTQ plus folks, even within our own cultures, or sometimes especially within our own cultures, right? Like there are a lot of things that happen that can be contentious or hurt, just like the pain. And he really, for me, modeled someone that continued to be his whole self, no matter what, no matter what the circumstances or context. And I again, like when I heard of his transition to the next world, I realized like how much of that like I have carried with me, like how much of those teachings. And it's not because I took a workshop with him or like any of those things. It's just that he was that living being that had the presence and the commitment to community, commitment to the arts, and commitment to himself.
I want to stop you there so we can welcome our other speaker, and we can sort of have a little bit of a powwow. But I do love that you mentioned how he was always so present. Every single interaction I ever had with him, I felt like it was just he and I. Like the world stopped and he was right there with you, right there holding both hands, looking you right in the eye. And you're right, I felt seen. And that's a gift that not a lot of people give in the community. It's so special. It's so special. So let me take a moment to welcome Mr. Patricia Chavez. Mr. Chavez is originally from New Mexico, where he worked in various capacities in arts and culture, including the New Mexico Arts Commission, the very special arts program New Mexico, was director of the ASA Gallery in the University of New Mexico. He was the editor of literary arts magazines Conception Southwest, and on-air traffic director and DJ at KUNM FM. Patricio received his undergraduate degree with an emphasis on art and photography, photo history, and Chicano studies from UNM. What brought Patricio to San Diego was the position of the visual arts curator and acting director at the Centro Cultural de la Raza. He worked curating exhibitions which toured nationally and internationally, with about 6 in-house exhibitions annually that primarily was work from and about the border region. He received his master's in fine arts from UC San Diego, and was a San Diego fellow in studio arts. As an artist, Patricio has exhibited his work locally, nationally, and internationally, and focuses on the intersection of culture, politics, and society. Patricio currently teaches at various community colleges in San Diego, including San Diego Mesa College, Grossmont College, and Palomar College. He has a keen interest in education, community, popular culture, the evolution of photographic technology, and visual culture. All right, here we go. Let's welcome Patricio. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Tell us a little bit about your work together at the Centro Cultural de la Raza in the 90s, and maybe a little bit about the Centro's journey, through the years.
Well, I've been most recently talking to Eloisa de Leon, performing arts curator at the time Larry was there, and also Richard Liu, and we were just remembering Larry so clearly. But for me, it wasn't like specific things other than just this feeling with Larry all the time of his presence. And he was always so regal and poised and professional and kind, and that great laugh. And that, as Adolfo Guzman recently said to me, that raspy voice of his, he misses that raspy voice.
Can't you
But
just
he was
hear it?
always dedicated to supporting individual artists and all other progressive organizations, not just arts organizations, and very dedicated to anti-racist work, anti-misogynist work, and pro-LGBTQ work. So we would just sit around primarily after these big events, I remember so clearly. And I have some pictures too. I guess I'll share later, right? My slideshow.
You can share screen if you need to, for sure. Or you can share them in the chat as well, whatever you prefer.
And then I have a paper, but I don't know whether to read from that.
I believe you can attach files. You'll see in the chat there's a little file button. You can attach files and share that. And if not, we can email it to the whole group after the fact. So whatever works best for you. Do you want to share a screen?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Okay.
So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
So I titled this Alma y Corazón because it was something that Richard Lou and I were talking about. And I want to talk a little bit about what was happening at the Centro at that time, because it's so key to not only Larry and all of our experience at the Centro at that time, but it's key to what's happening right now even. So this is a quote, I'm sorry, I don't have it on there. This is actually a quote by David Avalos about Alurista, the poet, how he helped invent a home within the Chicano imagination for a people who had been orphaned by manifest destiny, disdained as second-class citizens north of the border, and as social mutants south of the line. Chicanos reconsecrated the borderlands as Aztlan, a conceptual translocation outside the suffocating social frame of both countries and within the living embrace of a self-determined history, politics, and art. And that's a quote from David Avalos, and that's a photograph of Alurista, a very important poet to the Chicano movement. And this is, as Eloise put it, pre-technology that we're in now, but we produced at that time, I think, these beautiful brochures and posters, and I used this one, Del Corazón, from the Heart. This is something that Larry had written, and this is about a show that ended up taking place in Istanbul, not Egypt, after all, that I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. So Larry would put these out to the community in these brochures that we did. And like I said, I found they're filled with photographs and information. And we always saw ourselves not only as arts administrators, but as art activists and artists. And it was activism as a spiritual process. Here's a photo, you shared one already earlier, of the Centro Cultural. And by the way, there are a few people here from the Centro right now that would be great if they could put some information, because I think all of my talk is about when Larry and I were all and Eloisa and Richard Luna and Victor Ochoa were at the Centro in the 90s. So of course there's a lot happening there right now that needs to be talked about. But you know, it has these beautiful murals inside and out, and this is one, I believe, of Victor Ochoa, right? And there's the Toltecas in Aztlán and Geronimo. And then here's an interior shot of a very important mural, La Dualidad, and a lowrider in front of it. And the thing about the Centro Cultural, it's this round building, this former water tower, happens to be next to another water tower. It's the World Beach Center, which their focus is on the African American diaspora. And we would often collaborate, Michaela Grad and all of us at the Centro. And here's all of us sitting around after one of those events that I just described. There's Larry on the right, and I'm sitting next to him, and there's Eloisa to the right. And here's the names of all the folks. And this was a very common occurrence at the Centro Cultural. And we worked hard, we played hard. Larry loved life so much and loved people so much. And it really showed in his work. Here's another image that is all of us together at a Centro event. And Celia Ballesteros is on the board of directors. I think Canio Ojeda Hernandez was Howard's cousin. I think that's right. And there's Howard Holman on the right, a really important former board member and very important person, not only to the Centro Cultural, but to Chicano Park. And you can't talk about the Centro without talking about Chicano Park, which just had its anniversary last week, its 51st anniversary. Here's Veronica Enrique. He's the former director of the Centro Cultural right before I got there. So speaking of standing on the backs of giants, her and so many others that founded the Centro, we were continuing, Larry and all of us, the legacy of the work that they did. And then I have a few photos from events at the Centro. Here's David Alvarez and Schiffer Goldman. Here's Tomás Ibarra Frausto. There's Aida Mancias, Gilbert Becario on the left there. There's so many great people involved with the Centro. And then I have a quote from Luis de Leon about what was taking place in the performing arts. And within the performing arts, we were honored to present local, national, and international artists such as Samuel Valdez, Teatro de Lágrimas y Risas, Mary Lou Valentia's annual Dia de los Muertos celebrations, Navajo storyteller Jerry Keams, theater artist Nilda Perez, Binational Theater director Dora Arialo, performance artist and playwright Luis Alfaro, Sergio Rao, and his then band, El Venganza del Montezuma, theater artist Stephanie Heil, visual and performance artist James Luna. He was also on the Arts Advisory Committee, and he recently passed a couple of years ago, another great loss. The dance company Urban Bushwomen, and these names alone should somehow light our collective consciousness on fire. And there were so many more. And then just a few visuals of what was taking place at the Centro at that time and still takes place to this day. Here's
Patricia, you know, we have a limited amount of time, and I do want to pull some questions from you about what the organizations that you or initiatives that you might be involved in DEI work, or how have you carried this legacy on? I mean, this is such a rich history. We'll let you continue the slideshow, but I just wanted to ask that question and put it in your head. You know, to talk to us about how this moment in time influenced you as a person moving forward in your work, and you as well, Endy.
Well, I think I'll just keep moving and talking then to that question. Here's Olympia Beltran performing at the Centro. I think, well, I've dedicated my entire adult life to what's now called DEI work, right? So we've always, you know, I worked for the Cultural Arts Commission in New Mexico, promoting artists of color there. So now it's through education for me. That's my main focus, teaching at these 3 colleges that I teach at, and doing it through working with young people and developing their voice, the way so many have talked about Larry mentoring them at this time. Let me just get through these real quick. This was something that the Norteño Festival. So I hear you in terms of connecting to the present, and that's part of what I wanted to get into with what was taking place at the border at that time. You had mentioned Proposition 187. There was this thing happening at the border that all of us were kind of involved in as counter protesters, including Las Comadres. This is a photograph by Don Bartletti. It's called Light at the Border. So, and these are Las Comadres photographs, and that's a banner that said 1,000 points of fear, another Berlin Wall. So all of this was laying the groundwork for what's been taking place now, you know, with, you know, I don't even like saying the past president's name, the former guys that I call them, but all of the anti-immigration hysteria that's been whipped up again, you know, it all has its roots here. These are all Las Comadres Ruth Wallen photographs. So here's a list of all the participants, and I'll make this slideshow available so you can see all the details.
Yeah, great.
Okay, if anybody wants it. But this is an incredible piece that Las Comadres did. And if you see that rug on the floor, this is Kirsten Oboe contribution she let me have. This was a letter sent to Roberto Martinez, the director of the American Friends Service Committee. So I mention this because it was such an incredible time that, and this is also Kirsten Oboe, one of the banners, that all of the stuff that was taking place, we were getting death threats at the Centro. I remember I'd be calling people to show up just in case these people really were going to come and shoot us like they said they were on the telephone. And Larry was very brave. He always supported the work that we were all doing. Las Comadres, there's Eloisa de Leon, and Ruth Wallen, Aida Macias. So I'll finish this up pretty quick. This is a Border Sutures project, Border Workshop, and we're actually working on a book right now about this project where we zigzagged across the border from one coast to the other, healing the border wound, right? So anyhow, this is towards the end. But it was just this crazy, crazy, incredible time with Larry at that time, and the international recognition that we were receiving, this Border Art Workshop installation, and then finally ending with this piece by David Avalos, Lewis Hawkins with Cisco, which was called Art Rebate, where they gave back to the taxpayers who happened to be undocumented $10 bills. And that's when I stopped sharing the screen. That's when Rush Limbaugh came after us, and all kinds of crazy stuff was happening.
Yeah.
It was a really, I think, pivotal moment for Larry to be director with all of this stuff that was going on. There's so much more in the paper I wrote too.
Yeah, and we'll share this, and thank you. We would love to have the slideshow available. We can share that as well in an email later. But so, you know, the work that people are doing right now, and you know, it's important to have context. We just lived through 4 years of a very racist administration, and that's clear to everyone. And so you know, we're now living this strange repercussion of it. We're in this place where how do you come to terms with what the resurgence of this in your face type of racism, you know, the generations like yours and Larry and others that led us to this place opened the doors for us to be able to finally have a voice, and opened the doors for us to finally feel acknowledged as Latinos or people of color. But it took a lot of fighting, and it took a lot of in your face, you know, people getting screamed at, death threats and all those things. Now those things are coming back. I mean, the one thing that you can say about Larry is that he was consistently fearless. I mean, just fearless and just quiet, but in this very fierce way, like I'm standing my ground. And I so value that effort. It's not for everybody. Not everybody can have those things screamed at them, you know, all the time, and to be living in fear. And, you know, there's moments where I guess what I want to say is that there's opportunities to be an activist in many, many different ways. You don't have to be that person right up front with the, you know, confrontational. You can do it through legislation. You can do it through advocacy. There's so many other angles. So can you share with us like some of your thoughts about how you can be involved and how you can support your, BIPOC allies or friends, and how your allies can support you?
Well, for me, the key is working with younger people at this moment. And actually, so many people don't know about this history, like some of what I just showed. People don't know. And when these young folks see this work in my classes, they're like, there's something really important that, just like you talked about when you were working with William, right? And how it clicked for you, seeing that kind of affirmation and us seeing ourselves in the work. So anyhow, for me right now, it's education and working with other people.
Endy?
Yeah, I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
What comes forward for me is how the legacy of Larry Baza, but also like you said, Susana, that the generations before us, how we, as we continue to be involved in arts, how we also bring our own presence into it, and how dismantling very often still, like, going deeper into the work is part of the process now, because I think that as we enter in all of the diverse ways that people are activists, there are the people on the front lines and the back lines and the hidden lines. And as we do that, there's this acknowledgement that we are in fact dismantling this imposed way of understanding what reason is, like what is reasonable and what is not reasonable, what is accepted, what is not accepted. And just the fact that we are still, no matter where we are teaching people how to treat us. And that is, in fact, a liberation tactic that all of us are using in different ways. And it's very much honoring the work of others that have come before us and have done a lot of work. But there is, like Patricia said, a lot of connection that still needs to happen with younger folks. I think it would be really great if there were more opportunities with funding that for folks and organizations to facilitate conversations between different generations of artists, of activists, of administrators, and maybe all of us together. I think there's very much like the operation of us operating in like silos, whether it's generational or within our different practices. And it would be really, I think, beneficial if we had dedicated time, and that time was supported so that we could have these conversations like here today and really empower each other and really support each other. And I think more of that is needed, especially with the younger generations.
Yeah, thank you. So that's all the time that we have with you all today. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so our next guest is, I'm very, very happy to welcome Ms. Anjanette Ramey, founder and CEO of Mariah Performing Arts. I'll call her AJ. Anjanette Mariah Ramey is a certified nonprofit professional with an MA in nonprofit leadership and management from the University of San Diego and a BFA in dance performance and choreography from CalArts. She has served as a public funder as the senior manager of funding for the City of San Diego's Commission for Arts and Culture, where she oversaw a grants portfolio of approximately $10 million to over 100 arts nonprofits and a $15 million total department budget. Mariah Ramey has over a decade of experience as a nonprofit administrator, having served as company manager for La Jolla Playhouse, theater operations manager for Lawrence Family JCC, and grants and donors relations manager for Arts, A Reason to Survive. She has held executive leadership positions as director of development with Mo'olelo Performing Arts Company and managing director for CYT San Diego, and has served as a volunteer grant panelist for the California Arts Council, City of San Diego's Commission for Arts and Culture, and Jacobs Center for Neighborhood Innovation. Mariah Ramey has been involved in the local San Diego dance community as a dancer, teaching artist, and independent choreographer. Her choreography has been presented at events such as TEDx San Diego, La Jolla Playhouse's Pop Tour, and Diversionary Theater. She taught modern dance and musical theater choreography at West Hills High School and was guest choreographer and adjunct modern dance professor at Grossmont College. She volunteers for the ACLU as a People Power community organizer, co-founder of Young Brother Book Club, and as a nonprofit leadership mentor to USD and UCSD students. So welcome, AJ. Go ahead and
Thank
unmute.
you. Thanks, Susanna. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. I'm trying to find you. Hang on, there you are.
Oh, I'm in the sea.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, hands.
Thank you. What an honor to be here. I've been trying to hold it together too. Larry has been a mentor of mine for many years, for over a decade, I'd say. I met him in, I think, 2010 when Victoria Hamilton, who I call my arts mom, and Larry's my arts dad, or my aunt and my uncle. And I have another arts auntie on here, my tia, Josie Talamantes. On here too. So I have a lot of mentors who shaped me into who I am today. But the last time I spoke or texted with Larry was actually on MLK Day. And it's a day that we saw in his slideshow, and that really introduced him to the civil rights movement, to be active and involved. And in a way, Larry's like my arts MLK. And he sent me a text because I asked him to speak at our I call grand reopening, because I opened Mariah Performing Arts during the pandemic, just days before mandatory shutdown orders on March 2nd, 2020. I signed a 5-year lease on a space in Chula Vista in the South Bay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and did renovations and held the space until we could really like reopen. We've like shut down and opened so many times. So I asked Larry to be part of our guest speakers for the day, alongside some elected officials like Monica Montgomery and the Philippine consulate. And we had a representative from County Supervisor Nora Vargas's office as well. And so Larry texts me, I'm just going to read it verbatim. Hello, AJ. I'm honored that you would ask me to be part of your performing arts space opening. I will be glad to say a few words. Please email me any info on the space, its trajectory, and anything you've got about your heroic effort. Happy MLK Day. He sends me this emoji. I was so proud of him because he learned how to use his cell phone and made these really cute emojis. And he says, he always sent me a Christmas card, handwritten Christmas card. And he says, all the best to you and Matt, who's my husband. Let's have a Zoom chat sometime, albeit I've never set one up in person, but it's good to see people in a meeting. Yes, Larry. And then I just said, thank you so much for agreeing to speak. And then he says back to me, I am so proud, respectful, and grateful that you are dancing on, not marching on, through physical challenges and structural neglect of our API communities. We've talked about Larry's Latinx heritage, but we also, want to acknowledge that he is Guamanian and Chamorro. He's Pacific Islander. And he often said to me that, girl, you and I were cut from the same cloth. We come from very humble beginnings. We are children of immigrants. We fought for the American dream, and we fought through many, many things. And what he's talking about with my physical challenges is that I am a brain hemorrhage survivor, and I'm also a leukemia survivor. And so I was just wrapping up my chemo treatments. Larry was going to be speaking at our grand reopening on February 20th, but little did we know, while we were at the event, Larry was passing. He passed that morning of our event. So we had a pastor come and prayed for him, and we had no idea that we were already honoring his legacy before we even knew he passed. And so on that day, we had a great celebration, and then Dia Hurston actually called me. She's on our advisory board, and said, oh, honey, did you hear about Larry? And I had no idea. She says, our Larry passed. And of course, I was like on the floor, just hurled over. I couldn't believe it. I knew he was sick, but I didn't know that he was to the point of dying. And then 15 minutes after I talked to Dia, Channel 10 News calls, and I have to do a story. So I wanted to share the story that Channel 10, you'll see my face. It's really puffy and ugly and my mascara is running all over the place. But that's something that Larry also taught me to do, is that you have to show up regardless, like that's what a fighter is. A fighter's going to get punched and pushed down, and you're going to have to come and pick back up. That's also what I think Larry taught me in terms of like, things aren't easy. It takes 40 years to move things, mountains and mountains. And so Larry, he kept pushing me. He's like, oh, honey, I know it's hard and you're going through so much, but you got to keep going. We are cut from the same cloth. And he would say something like, girl, I'm not gonna be doing this forever. So you're gonna have to fill in my shoes. And I'm like, oh God, they're like probably fancy blue leather loafers, because Larry was a great sense of style.
The best style.
He had, like the matching handkerchief, pocket square, and like cute shoes all the time. So I took that as a huge, huge honor and legacy that I won't forget Larry for, because he was so inclusive. He was a champion for diversity and equity. And we fought through that at the commission on the regional level. With Victoria and Josie at the state level, at California Arts Council. I felt like I was always attached to Larry's hip, thinking about what policies need to be changed, what even like the simplest words or dollar amounts really can make such an impact in small arts organizations and to individual artists. So I want to thank Larry for that, and for infusing me with the strength to keep going despite what he's saying, the structural challenges. When we talk about structural racism, it exists within our systems at the government level. So we always had this inside-outside strategy. I was in the inside as a senior manager of the public arts or the funding program. And he was like on the inside and outside, but you can't organize unless you have both somebody on the inside, whether it's your elected officials or your staff or
because
whoever.
The people on the inside are tied by red tape. I mean, they can only move so fast. They can only move so far within their little box structure. And, I've been on the inside and the outside also, so I have an understanding of that. And I always kind of, I understand people who work in city government who, it takes 10 years to finally build a building. It takes it takes 15 years to finally pass that one piece of legislation that will open up, new things. But I'm encouraged. I don't know if you feel the same, but I'm encouraged by the current administration and how we are in San Diego, and how what supporters of the arts they are, and how I'm hoping that means that there will be some scissors pulled out and some of that red tape cut around, so that we can open up some more opportunities for all organizations, all sized organizations. I want you to tell us a little bit about Mariah Performing Arts. Tell us about your mission and your concept of hiring BIPOC artists.
Sure. So I opened in a pandemic. So I'm also a cancer survivor. I'm also a pandemic artist survivor. So two things I'm very proud of, and I wish Larry was here to see it, but I know he's looking down on me. So I'm going to just share screen and tell you a little bit. Oh, look at the cute emoji. I don't know if you could see it.
Yes. Is that his emoji?
That's what he made it. It's so cute. It has his cute glasses and it has a peace sign. It's so adorable. But I'm going to share with you a little bit about Mariah Performing Arts. Here's our website, mariaharts.com. I can maybe Shannon can put it in the chat as well if you want to learn a little bit more about us. But we were founded in 2020 with two words in mind: solidarity and love. And we do have our whole entire team is BIPOC. I'm really, really proud of our staff. We've got every race, color, gender, creed that you can imagine. We offer multi-generational programming. We serve youth all the way through seniors. And as of the recent rise in Asian hate crimes, we've done a lot more work around AAPI healing. So I am a first generation Filipino American, and that's something that Larry also reminded me of, like, hey, we got to do more. We got to step it up for our AAPI community. So what we're offering at Mariah Performing Arts, we've offered some healing classes, free healing classes. I've sat on numerous panels about AAPI hate. Here's all of our AAPI teaching artists. We've got Japanese American, Filipino, Chinese, Samoan, Fijian, Hawaiian, Filipino, everyone you can possibly manage. And we teach hip hop, contemporary ballet, theater, voice, acting. We teach all of the performing arts to all ages and races. We've been working in the pandemic. We were recently commissioned by La Jolla Playhouse. We were just in the Sunday Arts and Culture section, which I never imagined as a BIPOC artist that I would be featured in the freaking Sunday UT. I'm sorry, I get emotional because commissioned by La Jolla Playhouse. I just always thought I was like in the back. You know, it's like, okay, I can do a movement consultant and choreograph for the pop tour, but never for the main stage, or never for good enough for the UT section. So this is coming up. It launches next Saturday, May 1st. It's free, and it's called Towards Belonging. It's really taking the past of Larry's legacy and weaving all of this, the issues around social issues and systemic racism through dance, art, and poetry. And this was filmed at Writer's Block. Victor Ochoa, I see you. This is your space that you helped create. Look at the same images of the fences that we just saw Patricia share. This is how it's translating to current life, or to now. Between the trees, this is imagery of Alyssa Jr. She's half Filipina and Black. We call her our Blackapina. And she's in between these trees. That's sort of a nod to Andra Day's, if you see it, or please watch it on Hulu. It's the United States versus Billie Holiday. And it talks about this song she could not sing. She was not able to sing. It's called Strange Fruit. So we've worked with David's Harp Foundation to help compose original music that lend to each dancer's identity. As right here, she's a queer Filipina, he's a queer Hawaiian, Samoan, Polynesian person. We have a Japanese American person that's hidden behind a fence that talks is a nod to Executive Order 9066, Japanese American internment. So you'll look for the nuances when art, how art can communicate stories of people of different identities, and how people can act and create change just by learning through art. So that's something Larry taught me as well. And just a few resources to share with you all. I've been listening to, just because you're a person of color doesn't mean you're anti-racist. And it's not enough that I'm not racist. I hear that all the time. I even have a white husband and white family members, and they say, I'm not racist. I'm like, okay, but are you anti-racist? It's not enough to just say, I'm not racist. But what are you doing? Are you doing bystander training? Are you doing anything when you see an Asian person like walking out of the car by themselves, or like being punched on the ground, or you see cops holding their knees to the necks of Black people? Are you doing something or saying something, or are you being silent? Right. And if you're saying something and you're taking action, that's being anti-racist. And then for our white allies in the room, Robin DiAngelo has some really great books out there. If you don't like to read and you want to listen to it, I would recommend White Fragility or anything that Robin DiAngelo puts out there. But we have to use art as a way to both communicate, entertain, all the things that art does, but it has the power. It really, really has the transformative power to change systems, to change lives, to change minds and hearts. And that's what I want to continue doing at Mariah Performing Arts. And this is a brave and safe space for everyone to come and feel welcomed and nourished.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're sharing all of these links on the chat as well. So if you, can you stop sharing as well? Yeah. So if there's anything that we missed, please be sure to add it in there. And then we'll be sending all of these links out also in the email. Our time went by really, really fast. I just want to thank you so much and give you a huge hug. I know that this was tough to do, but what a beautiful way to honor him by continuing his legacy in your organization. Look out for Mariah Performing Arts Company this weekend. And thank you again, Jeanette.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, so we've got to move forward. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Fernando Lopez. He's the Executive Director of San Diego Pride. He's the first Latinx non-binary Executive Director for San Diego Pride, moved to San Diego in 1999 as a homeless youth, and has since become a prominent LGBTQ plus community leader through their work with organizations such as Equity California and Marriage Equality USA, advocating for the rights of LGBTQ plus individuals, couples, and families. In their time with San Diego Pride, Fernando oversaw the creation and growth of the organization's education, advocacy, arts, and philanthropic programs through their board service with Lambda Archives of San Diego, We Are Fair Lopez, and founding of the LGBTQ plus Youth Services and Advocacy Committee. They have helped to organize educators in developing LGBTQ curriculum and reform school policy. Lopez has expanded LGBTQ plus voter outreach, founded and funded multiple BIPOC coalitions and organizations, and has increased San Diego Pride's international relations work by meeting with 500 delegates from 134 countries around the world. Their LGBTQ plus competency training and organizing has supported LGBTQ plus athletes, pushed for criminal justice reform, and improved protections for LGBTQ plus veterans and service members. Lopez's over 2 decades of LGBTQ advocacy, nonprofit management, public education, diversity consulting, media relations, and organizing have made them a consistent presence, ensuring the struggles and successes of the LGBTQ plus community are ever visible. Welcome.
Hi there. Are you able to hear me all right and see me all right?
I can hear you. There you
phone.
are. Great, I hear you. Okay, let me add you in. Hi.
Hi
Welcome.
there. Thank you so much. Sorry, our entire internet crashed the building, so I'm coming to you live from my cell phone.
All right. Well, we're going to make it work. You look great. You sound great. And thank you so much for being here. Can you please share a little bit about your connection to Larry? Tell us a little bit about, how he was connected to Pride as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to correct, my pronouns are they, them, theirs. My name is Fernando Lopez, and I'm the Executive Director of San Diego Pride. It is my pleasure to serve here at this organization. I'm about to hit my 10-year anniversary as the first Latinx Executive Director of this organization. And while I've known Larry for almost 20 years, I think one of the ways that it deepened our connection is Larry was the first Latinx co-chair of our organization as we began to formalize into a nonprofit organization from sort of an ad hoc committee that would come together and throw the party every year. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things that I was hearing folks say, like, we were all sort of hearing like, oh my God, I didn't know that about Larry or in that way, but I also experienced Larry in that way. And one of the important things about him becoming the first Latinx co-chair of our organization was at the time he became the first Latinx co-chair, was also with our first Black co-chair, Vertez Burke. And so together they became the first POC co-chairs of our organization at a time when we were really emerging as a community and as an organization. So it was really him who set us on a course from becoming this protest march into this really arts and advocacy organization. And those two things were so interwoven. And I think sometimes folks try to separate the two, what is art, what is advocacy, but Larry just had this way of navigating them both together and really keeping them at their core. And one of the funny memories I have is like when I first got to Pride 10 years ago, Larry was named the Champion of Pride, which is the highest award that we have at the organization. And so usually in a typical year, you get up and you get to go and get the award and maybe you say like, oh, thank you so much. And it's sort of this, really short, not even a speech, just a thank you. Like think about the Oscars, like it's really that quick. And so Larry took the opportunity to take the microphone and he started off talking about slavery. And that was Larry. Like he started at slavery and went on to abolition and talked about voting rights and women's rights and the suffrage movement and the civil rights movement and the farm workers movement. And he really wove it all together for like about 10 minutes, which is, not a short speech in an Oscar set, when you're giving lots of awards out. And it was just,
I love that.
just so amazing. And so I was, I was only like a month or two on the job, and I was not in charge of the rally yet, so I'll not take credit for this. But there were people at the side of the rally who were yelling at Larry to cut it off. You're going long. You're talking too much. And I was going to drop some links because we actually have it on video. If I get our internet back on, I'll drop the links for you all.
Yeah,
and you can see his speech. And that was him. He understood, he had a way of understanding how the struggles that we're fighting now against systems of white supremacy, whether it's in the LGBTQ movement or religious minorities or communities of color, or the Black community, like we're all experiencing this oppression that is so connected to colonization and systems of white supremacy. And he understood that, and he understood how to articulate it and weave those movements together and weave the narrative together and tell that story in a way that pulled at our heartstrings and hurt us, that allowed us to hear ourselves in those stories and see ourselves in those stories. And so that 10-minute, like going long, Larry weaving it, like bringing the spirit of Stonewall all the way back to slavery and colonization, and manifest destiny, like that was Larry, and that was what was just so gorgeous about his brilliance and his way to tell a compelling story.
Yeah, I love this story so much because it's so typical of him. It's like you don't want to interrupt him because he's so nice and the voice is like so soft, and you're like, well, okay, I'll cut him off. Oh, well, but I can't. And he just does it in this wonderful, sweet way, and you can't stop listening. I love this story.
Yeah, and he was just like this. You can hear people, and if you like watch the video, you can hear the audio. You can hear people yelling on the side, and he was just calm. And Larry just continued on saying his piece, and it was just like I've rewatched it so many times because I just love it, and it just very inspiring to see that that's who he is, and that's who he wove into our region, right? That's what he wove into our movement and our region, and that sort of leads into the impact on our own organization. Like, I understand the stereotypes of what people think a Pride event is or a Pride organization is. Like, I can tell you how many times people have told me, you have a job? Is that like a paid job? Like, people walk down the street and they don't recognize that we're a massive arts and culture organization. We have over 37 programs that serve the Black community, the Latinx community, the API community, do work on sexual assault and criminal justice reform. We do interfaith organizing work. We do voter education and outreach and advocacy. We hire hundreds of entertainers every single year. And the majority of those musicians, dancers, artists, visual artists are communities of color. The LGBT community isn't a monolith. We're not just one thing. And I think, again, people have a stereotype of this wealthier white version of what the LGBT community is. And yeah, it was really like through Larry that, we went, the evolution was sort of, oh, you want to protest. So you're going to protest and there's going to be a march. And then, well, you're already marching, so we should probably have like a rally at the end. Well, there's a rally at the end and people are already there, so why don't we sell music or play music? Well, people are playing music, why don't we dance? Okay, well, people are dancing and playing music, so why don't we sell some beverages? And then it's like the evolution of that became, well, now we're going to do a rally on Friday. We're going to do a parade. That parade's going to lead into a festival. And at that festival that folks come to now, it's over 55,000 people come to this. Wow. And there's a stage that uplifts and honors the Black community. We have a stage that uplifts and honors the culture, music, art of the Latino community. In the last few years, we've added an area that uplifts the Epimeta community, the Asian Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, Desi American community. There's literary areas, there's visual arts areas, there's interactive performing arts throughout. And so, and then there's also access to HIV and STI testing. There's women's healthcare and trans healthcare and youth programs and senior programs, and that those things don't have to be separate and distinct, that those things can all be together. You can do direct and healing services, you can provide culturally competent healthcare, and also show people whose lives and bodies and experiences reflect our own. And that was so important to see that, to know that, to be a part of that. And it was compelling to hear you talk about the experience about being Latino and hearing go back to your country. And one of the things that Larry and I bonded on when I first became the executive director 3 years ago, I've been here for 10, but 3 years ago is when I became the executive director, is our phone rang at the office telling me to go back to my country. I'm a first generation Mexican-American, Jewish, multi-ethnic, queer, non-binary, former homeless youth and rape survivor. And like, people literally called and emailed the office saying they didn't want a Latino in the job. They didn't want a Mexican in the job. And literally to go back to my country. Well, I was born here. And I know that it was people like Larry who carved a path that was so wide that so many of us could walk through, you know? And so a lot of the fights that he fought for, a lot of the opportunities he carved out for us, like we're still fighting that now.
Yes.
And if any of you are readers of our newsletter, like we talk every single week about the way that our justice work continues. And that was what Larry really paved the way for. I can't tell you how much hate mail we still get back, particularly from our white community members, who, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, when we address issues of API hate, when we talk about combating white supremacy against the Jewish community, or when we talk about immigration reform as an LGBTQ issue and how we can address that through art, like we get quite a measure of hate mail back from our own community. And that is something I think that often gets overlooked, just because people in the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community are here and we are marginalized doesn't mean that we are liberated from our own biases against other races, ethnicities, religious communities, abilities. And we fight that every day. And some of the hate mail that we get is pretty atrocious. But, you know, Larry taught us.
You should nail it to the wall, like tape it to the wall. I'm serious. I mean, I love my haters. You know, they keep us going. But, you know, we had somebody on this chat today who didn't agree with the political views that are being expressed today and had to leave. So, you know, if you loved Larry but didn't love him as a person, or didn't, you know, share similar sort of views, I don't know what to tell you.
Right, appreciate his politics.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, he was the embodiment of his politics through his voice and action. So, you know, that's interesting. I do want to, you know, we have to keep moving, but I do want to just ask you, what would you like to see happen next when it comes to, you know, DEI work within your organization or in your community, in your specific community?
So, well, within us, I mean, I wouldn't just say within us and our community, the LGBT community, and my charge would be to all of you watching this, like, is that, you know, I heard someone say like about the Latino community, I think that earlier, you shouldn't just be hiring us once a year or showcasing us once a year. And that charge goes back to all of you, is that you shouldn't just be highlighting LGBTQ artists and entertainers and queer and trans non-binary artists and entertainers once a year. You shouldn't just hire them at Pride season. Like, I can tell you that one of the biggest complaints that we get from LGBTQ visual and performing artists is that people only reach out to them when it's June or July and Pride Month. And then they don't hear from them the rest of the year. And you're like, I exist, I'm a part of whatever community is the rest of the year. And so I think it is, you know, I'm excited to hear about the funding work that's being done and advocating for more funding for arts and culture. It's obviously always important, but then you also need to invest in marginalized community, and that is intersectionality. Great that, you know, during Black History Month, you're highlighting a Black artist and entertainer, but are you doing that the rest of the year? Are you highlighting trans Black artists and non-binary artists? And so how can you uplift those folks throughout the year, not just once a year? And I know we're running short on time, so I will just leave you all with one announcement, is that this year we're actually going to, that Champion of Pride Award that we had that Larry got 10 years ago, we have several different award categories. And so this year we're adding a new one. And this year we'll be adding the very first, the inaugural Spirit of Stonewall Larry T. Baza Arts and Culture Award to honor his legacy of work.
Yay.
And so that award is going to a visual or performing artist whose organization or they as an artist elevate the LGBT community in service of education, advocacy, visibility, justice, and joy. So we're excited to announce who that winner is. And I think there's some people on this call today who already know who the winner is. But Yeah,
Oh, I thought you
Justice
were going to
Angela.
announce it. Ah,
Not going to announce the winner
we'll have
today,
to
but I'm
wait.
just announcing that we have the award. And some people here already know who it is.
Thank you so much, Fernando. Thank you for all the wonderful work that you all do. And, you know, we're very happy to support your organization. Please do share any links that we may want to be aware of opportunities or resources here in the chat for the community members that want to learn more about LGBTQ plus community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so moving forward, we are very happy to welcome two wonderful individuals who are working in the museum space. Welcoming Leticia Gomez Franco, she's the executive director of the Balboa Art Conservation Center, and Micah Parson, he's the chief executive officer of the Museum of Us. Leticia Gomez Franco is an arts administrator, advocate, and cultural producer. Her work is rooted in the intersection of culture, representation, and social justice, all values that play a role in her new position as executive director of the Balboa Art Conservation Center. She has most recently served as a senior arts and culture funding manager for the city of San Diego, where she led the city's arts and culture funding program, oversaw the development and implementation of professional development, technical assistance, and capacity building to incubate and build capacity of artists and arts and culture organizations, and supported the department's diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Before that, Gomez Franco served as director of programs for the New Americans Museum, where she supported the grand reopening of the immigrant narratives-based institution and led curatorial efforts. Her career in the arts began as an exhibits director for Casa Familiar's The Front Gallery, a collaborative of arts and culture, design, and urbanism, where she oversaw development and program management for multiple art spaces, as well as headed a rigorous and culturally conscious exhibition calendar with a commitment to local arts, diversity, and community empowerment. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of California, Berkeley in English and Chicano Studies, and a Master of Arts in Curatorial Theory from San Diego State University's Liberal and Arts and Sciences program. She is also a two-time fellow of the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture Leadership Institute. Leticia remains steadfast in her commitment to use her experience in arts administration, development, marketing, and curating to increase access to the arts for all San Diego's diverse communities. Welcome, Leticia. And we're also welcoming Mr. Micah Parson. He's a husband to Marguerite, father to Abner and Oscar, an anthropologist with a PhD from Case Western Reserve University, a BA from UC Berkeley, and an attorney receiving his Juris Doctorate from UC Davis. He joined the Museum of Us as its CEO in August 2010. Over the past 11 years, he and his team have gradually transformed the museum from a musty, dusty, and tired institution into a leading-edge museum. In 2018, the museum was awarded the University of San Diego's prestigious Kaleidoscope Award for Good Governance. Micah currently serves as the chair of the board of the Balboa Cultural Partnership, which supports the 28 arts and culture organizations in Balboa Park, and on the mayoral-appointed Balboa Park Committee. He also sits on the boards of the Western Museums Association and the La Jolla Country Day School. His past board service includes the San Diego Volunteer Lawyers Program, the Waldorf School of San Diego, and Elder Help of San Diego, where he was chair for 2 years. So welcome to you both. Hi, Leticia.
Hi, Susana. Thank you.
Hola, hermana.
I'm thinking of turning my bio into a novel since it's so long already.
Everyone has such a long bio, I had to cut it down. So my apologies if I left something important out. You're all good work. Yeah. And Micah, let me go ahead and unmute yourself, sir. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for joining us. So, you know, one of the things that kind of gets overlooked is the decolonization in the museum space. And what does that even mean for anyone that doesn't even understand what that looks like? Both of you are doing really interesting work. I'd like to start off with Leticia. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do at BACC.
So I'll start off with telling you a little bit about BACC itself. The Balboa Art Conservation Center is a 45-year-old conservation lab. We are located in Balboa Park, and we were founded in the 70s as part of a national movement to kind of open up these regional conservation labs that would help collecting institutions like museums and historical centers have access to conservation services. So basically this means if works in a collection, in a institute's collections get damaged or need care, they can come to the laboratory and get the care they need, but also having conversations with institutions about preventing that from happening. So appropriate collections care and cultural preservation planning, working with institutions about storage and exhibition. So kind of really having a lot of those logistical and technical conversations with the ultimate goal of ensuring our nation's cultural heritage and whatever of that is shared in these objects. There's about a dozen of these regional conservation labs throughout the country. We are the only one on the West Coast. So we're located here in Balboa Park, but we serve the Western region, which includes, obviously California, Nevada, Utah, Washington, Arizona, New Mexico, Alaska, and Hawaii, and a couple other states I'm sure I'm missing. But really, we have a huge mandate to serve. I think one of the really exciting opportunities in coming into BACC is that it functions as a conservation lab, but also it's a nonprofit. And as a nonprofit, we have this wonderful, unique opportunity to do so much more than art conservation with our institutions. We have the opportunity to have conversations on a national scale about cultural preservation, and really think about what hasn't been happening in the field. It's a new field. These regional centers were established in the 70s, and conservation wasn't really thought of too much before that. But the field itself could use a lot of work. Some surveys done between 20 and 30 years ago found that 95% of the field is white, which coincides with what we know about the percentage of the diversity in collections in museums, right? So we are an institution that serves the collections of museums and their holdings are not diverse. Then we have limitations on what collections we get to work on. But really using that as an excuse to not amplify other collections is no longer acceptable. So I'm really excited about BACC being a Larry Baza type agitator in that sense, and really asking the tough questions and bringing in the communities that haven't been heard in the past, that haven't been part of these conversations in the past, and centering them. And that's a part of the hard work that the arts field has been doing in the past couple of years, really decentering the whiteness that exists in the arts field and bringing in other people to the table, bringing in other communities to the table. That's what we're interested in doing.
Is this a way for you, I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, to move forward Larry's legacy? How did he influence you? Tell us about that.
Yes, most definitely. It was really nice to hear everyone else's stories about Larry, because my relationship with Larry was similar to Anjanette's in that it was a mentor-mentee relationship. So it was really great to hear like Patricio's stories about actually working with him when they were at the level that I was when I met him, which was an aspiring arts administrator who had no idea what I was doing and could use all the guidance in the world. But I think Larry did much more than that. Aside from providing guidance and advice, I think his daring and bold presence in spaces that are not meant for us was so influential. And when you're an arts administrator of color and you know that you're navigating spaces that are not meant for us, having someone else already have been there really kind of highlights this reality for us that our existence is our resistance. And having Larry there in his very elegant and unapologetic way of being himself in these spaces that seem very normal and natural made it so that we could be there as well. I will forever be thankful to Larry for that because he made it unspecial. By the time we got there, it wasn't like here's a special initiative person coming in because we need a brown person on staff, because Larry had already been there.
That's what they say when representation matters. I mean, just having an openly gay Latino, arts administrator there for 40 plus years told you it was possible. It just made you believe that it was possible. It's so nice to hear. I want to bring Micah into the conversation. Micah, your museum has been doing incredible work lately. I mean, there's so much to share. Please tell us first about the change of the name from the Museum of Man to the Museum of Us. Why?
Yeah, thank you, Susanna, and thanks so much for having me here. It's really a humbling honor, especially as a privileged white male who is learning and listening and working hard to do better and to be an ally as we move forward into this work. And of course, our name change as an organization has been a huge part of that effort. Really the culmination of 10 years of kind of doing an internal excavation of our own institutional history and better understanding the ways that we had perpetrated harm on Indigenous and other BIPOC folks, and the ways in which we continue to perpetrate harm over the years and to this day, and trying to bridge that gap really between who we say we are and who we actually are. So talking the talk is one thing, but really walking the walk is an entirely different thing. And so the name change was really about getting to a point in our institutional trajectory with our anti-racism work, with our decolonizing initiatives work, where we just felt that we couldn't be the Museum of Man anymore. In fact, we had grown out of being the Museum of Man, and we needed a new name to really reflect those values and set the stage for the next phase of our work. So Larry was a big part of that. He was, so overwhelming to hear everybody's stories of love and support and mentorship. And, when we had to select a trustee to be interviewed by the Union Tribune, actually, to share the story and kind of launch it, it was sort of a no-brainer to pick Larry. He represents and epitomizes sort of what the Museum of Us had become and where we want to go. And, he was such a powerful addition to our board about 2 years ago, and just made a huge impact on the organization in a very, very short time. I'll never forget, I had known Larry for about 10 or so years. In fact, one of my first days on the job, I had to meet with him and Victoria Hamilton at the time, and the museum was in the doghouse for not doing what it was supposed to be doing from the Commission for Arts and Culture perspective. And I was so new to the job and had never worked a day in a museum or as a CEO, and was sort of faking it till I make it. And Victoria had to sort of be the heavy, but Larry was the sort of, I believe in you, Micah, I know you can do this. And we developed a nice, wonderful friendship, and he became a great colleague. And every time I saw him, he had these amazing words of encouragement. And finally, many years later, 8, 9 years later, when I mustered up the courage to ask him to consider joining our board of trustees, we were at lunch at the Prado, and I was telling him about the decolonizing initiatives work, and he nodded knowingly, saying, I followed it. And as I got deeper and deeper into it, he started to cry. And it was such a part of the work he had brought to fruition. I'm not sure the Museum of Us and our decolonizing initiatives would have been possible without Larry setting the table for all of us to do the work we're doing in our own organizations. I'm just sorry he's gone.
Yeah, thank you. And you have an announcement to make, right? I mean, you just recently announced that the Museum of Us has this new initiative for membership, which really is, if you're talking about equity, I mean, wow, everybody gets to have membership to this museum. Tell us how that happened, or the process.
Yeah, we've been working on membership forever and struggling with it for years and years and years. And what does membership look like at the kind of museum we aspire to be? And we finally realized that the whole sort of premise of membership is antithetical to our values as an institution. And, you know, it's based on this idea of haves and have-nots, and that if you're a member, you're a have, and the more you kind of money you put in the coffers, the more privileges and benefits you get. And the Museum of Us is, of course, about being a place that is welcoming and a place of belonging for everybody in our community. It's about all of us, and it's about elevating narratives that are often untold or swept under the rug or squashed. And so we decided that we wanted to sort of turn membership on its head and really do away with it as we know it. And we said, you know, everybody should be a member and have those same sort of privileges. And so we came up with this new model called Membership on Us. And essentially, anyone who buys a single day ticket to the museum gets to come in for free as often and whenever as they want for a year. And they just need to opt in via an email address, and they too are members. We also have are in the process of developing partnerships with select Title I schools and youth programs where their students and a guardian, along with faculty members and staff from those organizations, can come for free to the museum anytime they want as members on Us, simply with the flash of a school ID. So we're starting small and beta testing, but we hope that down the road, every Title I school affiliate in San Diego County will be able to come for free to the museum anytime they want.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you both for the wonderful work. I want to bring back our other panelists for just a quick, this is sort of like a speed round. I'm going to ask you just to answer the question of in 10 words or less, if you don't mind, since we're running out of time. What would you like to see happen in 2021 and beyond when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion in your communities? And I'm going to pin you here as well. Whoever's ready to answer it, you can just go for it.
I'll start. This is Endy. I think what came forward for me right now is I would like for all of us to continue to elevate the indigenous people of not only of the whole continent and the Earth's experiences. I think that sometimes that gets kind of put aside as we talk about BIPOC issues. So I would like to just say that.
I guess I'll say something. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
I think Larry really believed in, and I believe in, as many of you, institution building in the best sense of what that means, so that organizations that do support Indigenous culture and struggle are healthy instead of under siege all the time. So for that, having said that, like the Centro Cultural, getting the support that it really needs right now to be successful, and maybe an initiative might be through your organization, Susana, to sort of bring together, as you did with this wonderful event, organizations like that, maybe even host events. I know there are several Centro folks here host events at the Centro or World Beat or other locations. So I guess that's my thought.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I like to jump in. It's Ann Jeanette, Mariah Ramey. I think to continue Larry's legacy in DEI work around funding specifically, I think it's time that we revolutionize philanthropy, both private and public sector funding. That if we're really talking about equity, and I've said this till I turned blue in the face when I worked at the commission and at the state local arts agency as a volunteer, that equity means those who have, we've heard Micah say it, those who have. Why do they need more when those who have not don't have enough? So when the people at the top maybe get less, maybe instead of 500, they get 200, the people in the bottom can get more. And this is how we achieve equity. I have to do it visually because I'm a dancer, but that's how we achieve equity. If those who are have-nots, why do they have to stay the have-nots? Those who have should give. And that if the commission can look at policies where they can at least start at the local level, where commission can look at policy where there is equity. And what does define what that means? There's going to be less and less funding in the coming years. What is it, 5 million next year? That's nothing. And if you're still giving out hundreds of thousands of dollars to large institutions, that we're never going to get to equity. We're never going to get to where we need to be at this moment in time. We shouldn't wait 40 years for a revolution to happen again. It's time for change.
Thank you. Anyone else want to chime in? We have
Can you
just a
clarify
couple
the
minutes.
question since my phone
Sure. The
dropped
question
out
was
again?
in 10 words or less, because we're running out of time or so. What would you like to see happen within your organizations or communities related to DEI work?
Suzanne, go ahead, Fernando.
Oh, sorry. I'll just say that we should never decouple our advocacy from our art. And if it's making folks uncomfortable, great. You should be a little uncomfortable.
I just want to let everybody know that we're in an evolutionary process. We're like America. We're growing right now, and what we're feeling right now is the angst of growing and evolution with revolution. So people shouldn't get nervous, because all of us are contributing to this change of evolution, and it is a revolution. So what happens is all of us that are fighting the fight since 1955, when I came here, the fight has begun. This is not new. This is not new. What's new is this new evolution of all of you contributing to this revolution. And it'll be pains and there'll be growth, and all of us have to contribute to this change. All of us have to have our voices and our opinions to this evolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susanna, along those lines
yes.
Of evolution, I think my hope is that the Museum of Us can eventually become an Indigenous and BIPOC-led organization, both at the staff level and at the board level, so that it's those folks who are really driving the decision making.
Nice. Victoria?
I think it's all been said, but I would just invite you to join us in our advocacy for increased resources for arts and culture and individual artists, not only at the city and the county level, but at the state level and the national level. So please join us and in the movement. Thanks.
Oh,
wonderful.
I can't seem to find chat or speak. May I say something? Is that possible?
I don't know who's speaking. Who's speaking?
Doreen Schombrun. I'm a commissioner for Arts and Culture, and I'm president of the Baza Foundation, which is a fairly newly formed organization, nonprofit, that feeds right into the Unified School District for extra programming for the arts. And that is extra funding for each child in every class. We've been doing extremely well. We have grown in the last 3 years tremendously, but we so believe in equality, in diversity, and we really want to have specific programs for each school for what their needs are. And elevate heritage and to create self-esteem, but to really get to everybody. And I'm especially those kids who would ordinarily have an art experience at home or elsewhere. So it's going to be, I just want you to know that there's hope, and there's like rising, stars that are coming out into the sky more and more and more in support of the arts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all the wonderful work you do. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So this is the end of our event. I just want to thank you, all of our speakers, for being a part of this, for honoring us with your time and your presence, and for helping us to honor Larry Baza. We wish you much continued success within your organizations and communities, and thank you for all the wonderful work that you are doing. This roundtable was a part of Vanguard Culture's quarterly creative industry roundtable series designed to inspire radical collaboration across all industries. The series aims to provide creatives with the necessary resources, networking opportunities, and support to thrive within their industry despite the many obstacles that the pandemic has placed before us. And we hope you will join us for future roundtables as we gather to strategize, share resources, collaborate, and cross-promote and co-produce. Our goal is to encourage cross-industry alliances that are mutually beneficial, ensure sustainability of our cultural sector as a whole, and inspire San Diegans to more broadly support increased funding for the arts. You may sign up to receive updates about our upcoming roundtable sessions and other arts and culture happenings via our newsletter at vanguardculture.org. You may follow us on social media at Vanguard Culture, at Culturally Savvy. We hope that this experience has inspired you to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within your organizations and communities. Please stay safe out there, stay inspired, and never stop creating. You are doing very important work right now. Thank you all again, and a big thanks to the family and friends of Larry Baza for helping us to put this event together today. Thank you, and be well.